The Monetary Policy Committee under the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, recently brought to pressure and upped the monetary policy rate by 1.5% from 11.5%, where the rates have been since September 2020. Now we're at 13%. It was easy to see the rationale for this new move, as inflation had again started to ratchet up from 15% range to 16.8% last quarter. It seemed like we may once again have runaway inflation if something was not done urgently. However, the issue is that Nigeria's type of inflation is multifaceted. Some will call it stagflation, which is the worst type a country could get. This is stagnation and inflation at the same time. It's where there is very low growth in the economy at the same time as prices are skyrocketing. This means that many people will drop into the desperate poverty zone. All the same, it was noted that our inflation is partly due to government interventions as a result of COVID-19. Interventions which may not be backed by commensurate increase in productivity, and then also the devaluation of the naira, which has caused suppliers and manufacturers to raise their prices. An economic structure skewed towards mere buying and selling, and those heavily dependent on foreign exchange, and also the general supply side driven inflation, as the final consumer is made to bear the brunt when sellers struggle to stay afloat. What exactly is going on with our economy? Apart from monetary policy issues, which is what is up with the fiscal side of the economy? How can we attain economic growth and stability? And today, joining us on this show, the Nationalist, today is, to discuss these issues, is Mr. Priscilla Ezuku, a development finance analyst and public policy commentator. Welcome, Mr. Ezuku.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here, and thank you for heeding to our call.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Now, sir, I want to ask you, so the Money Policy Committee, they raised rates to the MPR to 13% recently in their last meeting. Yeah. What do you think are the implications of this for the economy?
Okay, thank you for that. First and foremost, the primary role of the CBN, extension the Monetary Policy Committee, is to ensure price stability. Yeah, so all things being equal, that should be their focus. So anytime any issue or any headwind that has the probability of affecting, that's their primary function, then their primary function should take precedence over that. Having said that, I wasn't surprised when I heard that they increased the interest rate. My concern initially was if they should leave all the parameters,
well, yes,
constant, with the supply pushed inflation we are seeing, because it's not demand pulled. Nobody is spending money. There is actually no money out there, so it's actually supply pushed. So my concern was what will happen. So many people, quite more than when we increase the rate, will actually go into poverty. Because the suppliers are increasing their prices, just as you rightly said in the introduction, because majorly the foreign exchange differentiations, So that has been a very major macroeconomic issue, which naturally also falls within the purview of the CBN. It's part of the price control and monitoring.
But would you think that, increasing the rates, and if the banks will increase their own lending rates as well?
Definitely, since the rate is
not
increased.
Slow down the economy, people out of job. If companies realize that they have to, struggle to get loans from banks, and so would they be throwing people out of work?
Increase in rates by CBN, the MPC, definitely will increase the bank lending rate. Definitely, it's automatic.
Yes.
So you can't really force bank to. The rate have already been increased, so they will definitely increase the lending rates. Having increased the lending rate, also there is also another angle. All things being equal, since the MPR is increased, the banks, the rates for which the bank mop up excess capital, through fixing of funds, is expected to increase. Now, if that also increases, definitely we see the inverse relationship between this and the equity market. So we expect reduction in the equity market because people definitely. So if a stock, for instance, in the equity market is giving me averagely, say 3, 4, 5% growth in a year, and I see a government facility which is almost risk-free, because since the NPR is increased, the whether treasury bill or the bond rate, definitely they will increase. So the market free rates definitely will increase. So that will cause quite a number of issues. One, to me as a small business holder that want to go to the bank to obtain loan, definitely the rate will increase. And if the rate increases, it means for me to remain in business, I need to factor in that cost of capital. So it will also fuel it the more. But the question now is we need to match the two. Trying to control inflation, or to drive productivity. But we've maintained that rate for quite some time now. And how has it panned out? So for me, for the past, I think 18 months or thereabouts now, 18 quarters.
Exactly. So perhaps more than that. 18 months thereabouts. So but so would you say how effective is monetary policy? I'll ask you a double-barrel question. How effective would you say monetary policy has been in Nigeria? And also, people say that the central bank is going into fiscal policy. What's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with you. So for me, as a development finance person, the role of central bank is actually not development finance. It's actually the fiscal side, which is the Ministry of Finance, that handles. If you look at this current CBN, they are doing quite a number of development finance interventions. Interventions, we have the anchor borrower, we have quite a whole lot of them trying to push money into the economy to support SMEs. And these are development finance. It's just a component. It's a very small component of what their major role is actually price stability and monetary policy. And now, if I'm to measure the CBN based on their own dashboard, their target is to drive a single-digit inflation rate. Of course. So no matter what you do, if your primary function, you are seen to be failing in that role, that means all the intervention you are doing, I think you are rather playing another man's field. For me, the CBN is not doing well. Why? Why do I say that? I want to measure them based on two things. Like I said before, the inflation rate, which they set a target for single digit, say mass of single digits 9%. But at the moment, we are doing 16.8. So that target was not met. Now, the next target is actually value of Naira against major currencies. Today, as at yesterday, I don't know what is today, let me just use an average. It's averaging over 600 against $600, 600 Naira against the dollar. So would I say they are doing well? No. So, but it would be unfair to say all the things are being caused by the CBN.
Exactly. I believe so.
So we also have the fiscal side. The fiscal side, which has to do with how government generate funds and how they
but before you go there, let's look still, before you talk about that fiscal side, let's look at what options are available for the central bank in terms of monetary policy. What instruments could they use? We know that, in terms of, the Naira rate as well as the issue of inflation, and I probably want to point out that sometimes what obtains, like in some of these developed economies, do not obtain here, does not obtain here. For example, increasing interest rates, believing that inflation will fall. Sometimes it does not. You know what I'm saying? So maybe they are short of instruments, or what? What could they do on inflation and on this Naira issue?
Okay, so we live in a very special country where there is increase in GDP, the economy is growing, but it's not reflected.
Exactly.
So it's more or less a disjointed economic structure. And I use that word because naturally, the more the population grows, all things being equal,
yes,
more people, there will be increase in productivity. Yeah, so that is a very simple analogy. So we want to give birth to more children so that they will start producing the more, so that they will start trading the more. That is where, but in our situation, we are giving birth to more people. The population is growing, but the productivity side is not growing because quite a number of people are actually not productive.
Exactly.
They are more like liability, if I'm allowed to use that word, to the economy. Right? So a situation where we are 200 and our GDP is still revolving around 400 plus.
Yes.
So
$400 billion.
Imagine a situation where, as our population is growing, now our productivity is growing. So if there is now any single or specific headwind that is driving inflation, we can curtail that headwind. At the same time, at least our productivity will remain constant. So, but this is a situation where so many exogenous factors are causing a headwind on inflation. So if you try to control inflation, you are at the same time controlling productivity, the small productivity you are getting. So let's take, for instance, the petroleum sector. Today, from what the National Bureau of Statistics gave, is actually one of the major headwinds that increased, that made us get the 3-point-something figures we got as GDP growth. So you look at that. Outside one or two trading, if I'm permitted to use that word, trading companies in the downstream industry, really, what value are we adding? It's just the single value of moving it from where it is to another place.
Exactly.
That's all. So in that whole value chain, we are not adding any value. So no matter what is happening, no matter the price of crude in the international market, we gain, by, we are getting more. We lose by the amount of money we are using to subsidize it. So you will still come at a break even. So really, you are not really achieving anything. So you are just there. So that is the issue. And now you see a CBN will now say, okay, at this point in time, the price of crude in the international market is increasing, so we'll start getting money. They start building the SS crude account, right? But we'll start spending more money trying to subsidize.
Which takes us to the fiscal side. So government fiscal policy now, tax and spend. Make a budget and spend. Well, and then when we talk about tax, we're talking about taxes, duties, everything that's due to the government. Taxes, duties, fines, fees, rates, what have you, okay? And so that's the work of fiscal policy, which is the Ministry of Finance. So they do that. They make sure they bring the money in. They call people, they call ministries and co, and then they spend on this other side to touch the people. Why are we not doing well on that? Because perhaps some people argue that, look, it's because the fiscal side is not doing well that you find the central bank also delving into that fiscal angle.
Yeah, I agree with you. So during my folks, my earlier days in this kind of discourse, I came to realize it might not be proven, but this is my view about how the fiscal and monetary, should work. If the federal government is spending, huge sum in constructing roads with its multiplier effect, paying contractors, government is doing quite a number of that. Definitely, the CBN need to be contrasting.
Oh, okay.
So that was one very basic knowledge I developed. I use that word that I developed because I don't know how. I don't know
also
where.
Valid.
So you see the Ministry of Finance, pumping money. There is money in circulation. The CBN is there mopping it, as if there is an inverse relationship
between the two.
But a situation where the CBN is contrasting, then the fiscal policy, because they are trying to checkmate inflation, then the fiscal policy that should be pushing so that we don't, strangle this baby. It's not there pushing. So we see ourselves where the inflation, other exogenous factors are pushing it, then there's somebody that's supposed to help, remedy it. It's not forthcoming. And I don't blame them because our budget size is very small.
Yeah. So, in fact, just hold your thoughts there, Mr. Prince Will. We'll go on a short break now. When we come back, we're still with Mr. Prince Will Ezuku, a financial analyst and public policy commentator. Stay tuned. Welcome back to your show, The Nationalist on Trust TV. Thanks for staying tuned. And we've been talking to Mr. Princewill Ezeukwu on issues of, monetary policy and fiscal policy. So, Mr. Princewill, earlier on you mentioned, that Nigeria's budget is small. But, it worries Nigerians that, look, as much as we say the budget is small, and even government keeps complaining that revenue is low, we say we have a revenue problem. But at the same time, we're seeing a scenario where recently a certain director of Ministry of Health or so was said to have single-handedly built a whole university himself and a big hotel somewhere and also event center. So what exactly could be wrong with our fiscal policy that makes it so loose that even the little we say we have can be so easily taken by anybody who's in a position of authority?
Yeah. Okay, so on that, I think it's an issue of system. It's actually the system, and then the punitive measures are not commensurate. There are so many ways you have to control maybe fraud and leakages. We have dictative, we have preventive, and then we have correctional or the punitive measure. So three of them must work hand in hand for you to achieve a sustainable economy.
Because for me, I'm sorry, I find it difficult to trust any Nigerian now in public position. Because, we also have the scandal with the Accountant General. Who's our own treasurer. So
it's an unfortunate thing. It's an unfortunate thing, and it sends a whole lot of signals out there. So late last year, we did a comparative analysis of countries, the revenue to GDP and corruption index. So we noticed that there is a positive correlation between the corruption index and the revenue to GDP. We noticed that countries that are low in corruption index ranked high when it comes to their revenue collection. So it shows that leakages, really, if a country, doesn't have the system to put corruption, there is no country, of course, that is corruption-free. But the scale is what matters here. So certain countries, as if it have been institutionalized. So everybody just want to, you just want to grab as much as you can. When the allegation, involving the Accountant General is mind-boggling. 80 billion, which later we realize another 90 billion, making it 170 billion out of 17 trillion. Of course, I don't believe that all of them could have come from 1 year budget. But this is one thing. Because there are a whole lot of leakages, we are complaining. And of course, the leakages, they're also part of the thing that are making the budget to be small. Because there are a whole lot of leakages in the system. So when you are computing your revenue, for instance, the issue of JAMB. Long before now, JAMB, WAEC, NECO, all these organizations, they generate income. But nobody, federal government keep subsidizing them. Federal government keep paying money until somebody came. And we saw that one of them, either JAMB or NECO or WAEC, JAMB, had excess. So imagine a situation where all revenue generating units of the government, are accountable. But humans naturally do not like to be accountable. Yes. So that is where the system comes in. Both the dictative, the preventive, and then the punitive. So they have to be, if somebody is seen to be corrupt, then there should be a system to try the person. 2 days ago, we heard, that in China, they sentenced two of their top officials, over corruption allegation. One even collected kickback, when I read it, oh, somebody collected kickback and you want to kill the person. Whereas in our own situation here, we've seen instances where certain serving governor, was caught on a camera and nothing happened. We are told that the person has what they call it, protecting the person. Immunity. That the person. So, which system are we practicing?
Anyhow, it's a very, very thorny issue, and I hope we get around it in this country. But because I was going to ask you, we know many of these issues, but we still have a problem. But the low tax to GDP ratio is a major issue. Nigeria is one of the lowest in the world, at about 6 to 7%. Even in Africa, the other time I checked, in places like Egypt, it's about 22%.
Yeah.
In places like Tunisia, Morocco, we're looking at 16%. In Kenya, in Ghana, 16, 17%. And Nigeria is there at 6%. Even tax havens have started to reform now to bring in some taxes and all of that. For example, UAE, in 2018, they brought a 5% VAT, which they don't joke with. And their system of fines and ensuring they call. I mean, you drive, you beat the traffic, or you even jaywalk, just crossing the road where you shouldn't cross it, they charge you like 200 dirhams or something that ridiculous, which is a lot of money, or you overspeed and so on. So how, in spite of our challenges and all these leakages, of course, if we can block the leakage, the tax to GDP ratio will go up. But how do we get Nigerians to want to pay their taxes and their dues more?
So this brings me to the next area, which is the area of highly informalized economy. Our economy is highly informal. So, and crowding in taxpayers in an informal, in a seriously, heavily informal economy is very difficult. So the man out there, doing barbing salon, for instance, how do you rein in on the person? It's very difficult. But imagine a situation where there is chain of barbing salons.
Yes.
So definitely, you can easily hold such organization. So that is the major thing. A whole lot of people are doing their thing, if I'm permitted to use that word. So you just do your thing. So you are not really captured by the system. And that is the reason. So many farmers are there, they buy their thing, they don't process. So there is really no time. So you want to hold them when they are going to access the financial system. Some of them are not covered by your financial system.
Exactly.
So they prefer they sell to you cash, you give them their money cash. So a whole lot of the problem is us institutionalizing and trying to bring in as many as possible into the formal sector, at least the semi-formal sector. When you do that, you can crowd in, because the major concern in Nigeria is that we are 200 million and more, but the number that are paying tax are actually very, very minute. So that is the issue. So we see a situation where you are 200, for instance. Now only 10 are paying. And when you want to calculate, you calculate the amount contributed by this 10 divided by 200.
So how can are you saying that formalization of businesses will do the magic?
It will not, it's not an automatic magic, but with time, if you have a limited liability company, for instance, right? You have a limited liability company, you are visible. Government can actually rain on you. You do transactions online, through one of these banking apps and all the rest of it. So you are seen, there is visibility. You are in the system. So the system can actually rain on you.
So how else can we increase our GDP growth rate, which is at 3% now, but with the hike in rates, you expect that it will slow down, maybe to 2%. Okay, but I believe that GDP rate should cover our population growth rate, which is 2.6%. Cover even our inflation. Otherwise, you make 100 naira, but you lose 10 naira to inflation. You're back to 90%. You haven't grown. So you cover. So we have 2.6% population growth rate. Inflation at 16.8%. Until that growth rate is actually covered, these two plus extra, before we can say we're growing. And in fact, if there's any devaluation in the currency again, that must be covered. Which way Nigeria?
So the way forward is a double-edged concern. But for me, I think where we need to start, just like I said earlier, is we need to solve the energy crisis.
Okay.
Energy crisis is one of the major militating factors.
That's electricity.
Electricity.
Are you sure if we give our people, they will just not use it to watch more Nollywood and this Indian channel? That
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. In as much as there will be more, people will watch more. Then we need to rein in money, also taxes from that angle. Right. So that's one. Two, there is needs. There is a critical demography that we are not making use of. The demography between 18 to 25. Now, that demography, that is actually the people that are holding our growth potential. It's not the 40, 50s that are holding and it's not the 35, 40s. Because the 35, 40s, somehow, you must have seen something doing.
Yeah.
So no matter, of course, it might be underemployment.
But so the younger guys.
Yes, the 18, 25. Really, a whole lot of them lavishing, if I'm permitted to use the word, through ASU strike, doing there. So there is really no productivity from that. Now, the best way to drive Nigerian productive adventure is to ensure that everybody has something, no matter how small it is, doing. As soon as everybody start contributing, no matter how minute it is, then the economy will grow. But trying to grow 1, 2, 3 companies for it, no, the population will overshadow that growth.
Fantastic. I was going to ask you about trade, but I think we'll put that in another session, the Nigerian trade and whether it can actually help us out of this hole that we find.
Are we actually doing trade?
You will answer that the next time. Thank you very much for
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, viewers, for staying tuned thus far. And we've been having a great discussion about fiscal policy, monetary policy. We'll be here next week. Thank you very much.